Step 4 in the setup is entering your employees. This is a very big step, and there's lots of variables here. So let's go to the employee register. You're adding an employee again in the top right hand corner. It's a good idea to maybe get an export from your payroll system, because that'll have all the employees' details, probably the site they're related to, their position. It also may have qualifications that the employee has, because in this step, you need to get all the information relating to that employee, as in what position they are, what site you're going to relate them to, what type of employee they're going to be, all their emergency contact details, adding qualifications of the employee inside the system, and also adding vaccinations. So let's go through some of these fields. Relating an employee to a site is a very important factor, because this is going to determine what the employee can actually see. So let's go to the site structure. If you're relating an employee to the global site, and if you're a smaller business, you probably would, then that employee will be able to see all the documents relating to that site. If you relate an employee just to this site here, then that way they're not going to see any other employees related to these sites or any documentation that's been related to those sites. So if you're multi-site with multi-departments, for an example like a council, that this might be parks and gardens and this might be childcare, well, obviously the people in parks and gardens don't need to see certain documents relating to childcare, and vice versa. So you could relate the parks and garden worker to this site and this site only. You can relate a person to more than one site. So if you've got a supervisor who's looking after multiple sites, you can relate them to more than one site. All you're doing there is literally selecting on the site, and if there was another site, you'd add another site, add another site, add another site. But you wouldn't relate them to the global site, because if you relate them to the global site, they'll be able to see all the data and all the people, and you may not want that. You could actually relate an employee even down to a sub-site like this. Again, they'll be only seeing documents relating to their site, and that site. So entering your employees into the system and your site structure is extremely important, depending on what you want them to see. Of course, you can change it at any time. You can upload an image of the employee, because the system will automatically create an ID card for that employee, complete with QR code, that when scanned will automatically bring up the view section of that employee, so people can see their emergency contacts, or their qualifications, all their vaccinations, and all their inductions they've completed. You've got 3 major permission levels. You've got a global admin, sees everything in every site. A management permission level, which is usually this level here. Again, you can relate the employee to more than one site if you wanted to. And then you've got the employee permission level, and they see a different page when they log into the system. They'll see this page here, but only documents that's related to the global site or the site that they are related to. Each one of these employees has their own to-do list. You can relate the employee to a position from the positions we just entered in the last step. But again, you might need to change those positions if you've actually printed out from your payroll system a list of your employee and their positions. You might need to go back to step 3 and update those positions to suit your payroll system. Totally up to you. You've got job types here. Really, when it comes down to full-time, part-time, casual, see the exact same thing when they log into the system. But if you relate a person as a volunteer, they will not be seen in the employee register, they'll be seen in the volunteer register. You can relate them to a supervisor. You can put salary and rates inside here if you wanted to, because that it actually relates to the incident reports where you could actually do lost time costs and all that kind of stuff. It's totally up to you if you want to do that. Unique student identifier. So if you've got a unique kind of code that you want to be identified with this employee, you can edit it here. Job start date. It's a great way to actually make sure that, hang on a sec, if this employee in years to come says, oh, I had an incident, and just to let you know that when they started. But your payroll system should have that anyway. And you could use the job end date, but again, your payroll system would have that. You've got phone number, mobile number. If you do want to use the notification SMS feature inside the system, obviously they're going to need a mobile number inside the system. Leave this set at global sitemap. You can put their date of birth here and so forth and fill in this form. It's pretty easy and generic, and the helper will take you step by step. You add qualifications into the system by hitting this button here, so you actually create your drop-down list by adding your qualifications here. Every qualification has an alert date and expiry date. Just need to use the calendar to actually lock that in. You can't type into that field. And you can upload a certificate. If you are going to upload a certificate, just make sure if it's a scanned document, you open it up again and save it as a true PDF, because at the moment it's an attachment. Enter their email address, especially if you want them to receive email alerts. And create a username. The system will automatically create a password. When an employee is entered inside the system, you can select View, and it'll open up all their details. You can create an ID card for that individual employee, complete with QR code. If you scan that QR code, it would open up this View section. Every employee has their own history. So you can see all their histories, any inductions they've completed, their to-do list, their qualifications you've entered, checklist they've completed. And you can make notes relating to that employee as well. So that's the employee register. It's probably the main register inside the system because every single register in the system relates to the employee register. But depends how you've actually set up your site structure, depends how the employee can actually then use the system. Now select Next and follow the step-by-step helper to enter all your employees.